Mothers, what messages are you giving boys that can lead to unacceptable behavior? I am Deidré Wallace, a relationship and corporate therapist. The clue is always in the gaze. Point 30. You may want to watch the last 3 videos, numbers 27 to 29, to fully understand how I've come to this reasoning. Even in the most loving homes, boys are often steeped in chauvinism. Culture and society are the soil in which misogyny germinates. From the earliest age, the image of women as caretakers saturate the world that we live in. That role, exalted and confining, breeds a dependence that men can find harder to either tolerate or relinquish. And from that tension, their anger towards women may grow. And if a boy conforms to extreme ideals of masculinity, the more he tends to suppress his emotions towards women, the more likely the misogynistic or abusive his behavior can be. Conversely, men who embody hypermasculinity may also be more prone to emotional vulnerability, even a sense of helplessness. Hurts from childhood can be small, like feeling ignored, abandoned, either emotionally or physically, or possibly even abused. The worse the pain endured early in life, the more likely a boy will build a tough, manly shell to protect himself. But the tougher that shell, the more his feelings about women can get pushed down inside, where they can turn into anger or cruelty. And in an ironic twist, the men who seem the toughest on the outside are often the most emotionally fragile on the inside. And some can barely cope at all. If you watched video 3, you may have gleaned that children can harbor deep anger towards parents, and the feeling can develop rapidly. Little John lost trust in his mother in just 10 days whilst living in a nursery, while she gave birth to her second child. It's worth watching if you haven't already. Herein lies the paradox. Little John was still dependent on his mother for his nurturing, and we suspect that hate and distrust of his mother would have hovered in the background as he grew up. And we see this evident with many children who lose trust in somewhere in their childhood and go on to dislike their parents, and some act this out too in their adult choices and relationships. On the other hand, if a child is spoilt due to the guilt felt by a mother's physical absence when at work, the child may be angry. Then, to get the nurturing they feel they never got, or what they got was out of guilt, they may decide consciously or unconsciously to stay at home right into adulthood. And if a father then dies, this can make things really awkward for the mother. Seen as the bitch, she may experience abuse from her son. With a stabilizing or authority figure, that is the father, gone, the household power balance collapses, leaving the vulnerable mother fearing intimidation and walking on eggshells around her son, her adult son, who doesn't work and relies on his mother for financial support as payback for the love he feels he missed out on when she was at work. Fear of retaliation from an angry son, a mother can remain silent, harboring a deep guilt, grief, or a misplaced sense of maternal obligation, convincing herself that she must fix, house, or appease her adult son. So she lands up walking on eggshells to avoid triggering the son's outbursts. This can be very isolating for the mother too. But also, if a son grows up fatherless, this could add to their woes. Let me explain. Boys, or indeed men, can seek out mentors in gangs or brotherhoods. And also, if a son had to become a mother's surrogate, as addressed in previous videos, then feeling smothered and that too much was taken from them emotionally, they would find it very difficult to attract a romantic or sexual partner despite wanting one. They could then become what is known as an incel. Incels are self-loathing, involuntary celibates and are often found on the internet, sometimes sitting at home with anger and self-worth issues, having never had a successful relationship or sex, and who may also indulge in vile pornography that denigrates and abuses women. They are men who brand their very identities around sexual rejection. Sadly, their cult-like brotherhood isn't a deviation from male psychological norms, but a darker continuation that is an urge to dominate, that is actually tangled with the shame of being powerless. This especially if they find themselves without a career, a means of earning work or social status, or indeed money. And of course it's never their fault that they behave the way they do. For these men, their anger and their sense of moral justification towards women can reflect unresolved inner conflicts. And taking responsibility for this would be very hard for them, because at the core of this avoidance are feelings of shame and frustration, which can be traced back to childhood experiences, specifically a sense of powerlessness under the father's authority, castration anxiety, and separation from their mother. As a result, masculinity can be used as a defense mechanism. It is therefore important that mothers and fathers need to know this. The nurturing required of a mother is usually at its strongest between the first 3 to 6 years of a child's life. A mother aware of a boy's fear and vulnerability may know and understand why gentle and more loving care is required to compensate for the vulnerability that boys experience. There are indeed mothers who are all too aware that their sons are extremely vulnerable, and the above explains why, but this may need to be impressed upon mothers who might not realize this if they are young themselves and not yet experienced as mothers. Indeed, if it were their first child, and so on. 2. Because the root of the problem lies in childhood, the journey to healing must start there too. The first step is to move beyond relying solely on the mother as the prime caregiver, and this calls for rethinking of how we approach social roles. It's not about placing blame on mothers, it's about encouraging fathers to take a more active role in parenting so that feelings like anger, disappointment, and authority are balanced between both parents instead of falling entirely on the mother. 3. Children may benefit by having both male and female teachers, vetted of course, in nursery or primary schools. This may also help boys especially. Children may then receive guidance and nurturing that will help them integrate better within themselves and within groups. They can be helped to gain better self-awareness, and for those with absent fathers or who lack male role models, this can hopefully provide an alternative. It is therefore important to become aware that adults or parental choices can have vast ripple effects on children. What a child hears about other parents, especially if the parent is the same sex as the child, will inform the child how to feel about that parent and what they feel about themselves as men or women, and so on. Indeed, the other parent also represents half of the child, as two parents create a child who then inherits genes from both parents. Denigrating one parent denigrates the other half of the child, surely. And a child usually looks up to a parent for acknowledgement, encouragement. It hopes to be told it is deeply loved and cared for, and through various actions from parents it hopes that this is true. But if a child hears that they are worthless, stupid, not good enough to be loved, not good enough, this knowledge may stick like glue and create self-worth issues. And not only can it stick, the hurt can get buried. The hurt can turn into resentment and anger, and if there's no reparation and if it cannot be addressed, these feelings may emerge later on, and then they may get projected onto adult partners. It is therefore so important that we think carefully about how we raise our children. Back to you. How does this topic relate to you? Can you identify with any of these aspects addressed? And if you are a mother, have you learned anything about boys or men? If so, what have you learned? And how has this video helped you? Once again, I would also encourage you to start a journal, if you haven't already, so as I go through the various points, you can jot down how you think or feel my knowledge is helping you understand yourself better. And do comment or subscribe if you wish to learn more. Thank you.